Thank you all for clicking on my channel. You are tuned in to Twinkle's Take. I am here to give y'all my take on Love is Blind, Season 5, Episodes 1 through 4. I know I'm late, so I really have to zoom through this so I can get caught up. But it's been a minute since I've been on YouTube, and I just could not miss out on all this good commentary. So I'm here to give y'all my take. Before I dig in, let me give y'all a quick synopsis of what Love is Blind is, because I know that everybody hasn't watched it. So how do I do this in 30 seconds or less? Okay, Love is Blind is basically a blind speed dating show. And the couples are not right next to each other like in regular speed dating. They are in individual rooms, which are called pods. There is a thin like wall in the middle of the room. It is like a bluish color. You can't see in between it. It's not transparent. You can just hear the person's voice. So the purpose of Love is Blind is to see if you could fall in love with the person without actually seeing them, fall in love with their mind, their heart, their stories, their goals, their personality, their ambition, all of that. Then if you can, the man proposes to the woman. And if she says yes, then they have a reveal a few days later where the doors open and they're able to see each other, repropose, and the experiment continues from there. Ultimately, in the end, there is a wedding day, which is 4 weeks later, and that is the true test of whether they say I do or they prove that love is not blind. I seen you and it ain't what it's cracked up to be. That's basically what it is. So, yeah, this 5th season was a lot. It always starts off with 15 women and 15 men before they get into the actual individual dates. Nick and Vanessa Lachey, side eye to them because they're really not that great at being hosts, but I'll talk about that on another day. They explain the experiment to them and then they send them off to the pods to start their dates. On day 1, everybody has to go through a round of speed dating with everyone of the opposite sex. But eventually they start matching with people and then you see them only on dates with certain people. So now that we've gotten that under control, let's dig into episode 1 because it was crazy. So there are a lot of different people. I'm not going to tell y'all all 15 people because not all of them are relevant because some of them don't match with anyone. But I'm going to get into the actual couples. So the first couple we have is Milton and Lydia. Milton is 24 years old. He is an engineer, I believe. Is he an engineer? Yes. And Lydia, she's 30. She's a geologist. There's a 6-year age gap right there. But they nerd out because they have similar interests because she's a geologist, so she knows a lot about rocks. Although Milton is an engineer, for some strange reason, he knows a lot about rocks too. And so they literally nerd out about different types of rocks. I had no idea what they were talking about, but they knew what they were talking about. And the nerd in Milton was like, yes, she's the one. She got me with this rocks conversation. It was riveting. Whatever the case, Lydia, she kind of wasn't feeling him too much once she figured out he was 24 because that makes him younger than her younger brother. So we will see how this couple pans out. Fast forward to the next couple. We have Izzy and Lydia. Same girl, different guy. She's really into Izzy. Izzy is 29, so closer to her age. She's 30. Izzy is an insurance agent. Now, he is a hot commodity. He has several dates with several different women. He is an attractive looking guy. He's Mexican. She's Puerto Rican. He's kind of filling out everybody on day 1. He's having fun, laughter, and conversation with her. We get a little bit of his background. We know that he hadn't been in a relationship for the past 2 years. He's been on a lot of these different dating apps, and he has dated around a lot. And I don't know if he was just putting he was looking for something casual and not something serious. And now all of a sudden you want to come to an experiment and look to potentially get engaged and married. That's a quick turnaround, but we will see how this goes. Obviously, he's a great conversationalist because he has spent the past 2 years dating random women on these dating apps. Now, for Izzy in particular, he is insecure about his bald head. And I guess this came from some of the dates that he was probably going on. Women would see his bald head and they would be turned off. I don't know if that's so common nowadays. I see a lot of people, whether they're in their late 20s or they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, bald head, and they have like attractive women on their arms. So I don't know if somebody just says something and it triggered him, it hurt his feelings, but he is worried for women to see him because he's worried they won't like his bald head. He honestly has nothing to worry about. Moving right along into his second date. His second date is with a woman named Stacy. So Stacy is just a lot of fun. Lydia, she was a firecracker. Stacy is fun as well too, but she's more tamed. And you can tell that he's like, okay, you know, I'm willing to talk to you again. I want to get to know you. She's 33, so she's 3 years older than him, but she doesn't act like it in these dates. It seems like she's on the same page as him because she's really just trying to keep it lighthearted at this point. So we'll put a pin in that. And then moving on to his third date is with a woman by the name of Johnie. And Johnie has a little bit more seriousness to her demeanor. You can tell that she's really trying to actually build something with him, an actual relationship, trying to get to know him on a personal level very quickly, but she also knows how to have fun with him. So we shall see. Between those three women, we have the firecracker Lydia. I forgot to mention, I don't know why I forgot to mention this. Lydia, she is Puerto Rican, and she will tell you she's loud, she's feisty, she's bossy. She is a turn-up good time, which is probably intriguing for a first date, especially when you can't see the person and all you can do is hear their voice. So you just hear fun, excitement. But is that long lasting? Will that eventually drive you crazy? Because it would drive me crazy. Nevertheless, he has his first date with Lydia, the firecracker. The second date was with Stacy, 3 years older than him, but knows how to have fun. She's a little raunchy too, so he likes that. And then Johnie is like emotional and serious at the same time, and he's really intrigued by her. So we will see. Izzy is a hot commodity. He's the ladies' man on this first episode, so we'll see how these dates pan out. Then next we have Chris. So Chris is a white male, 27 years old. He's just a good guy. You can look at him and tell he's a good guy. Like, he's not on here to play with people's feelings. He just wants to vibe and get to know somebody. And the person he's vibing with is Johnie. So Johnie is now dating Izzy and Chris. You can tell that Izzy is more exciting to Johnie, but Chris is more like safe. But it seems more real. It seems more attainable. She has really good conversation with Chris as well, too. But once again, this is day one, so everybody's keeping their options open. So at the end of day one, we see the men's living quarters and the women's living quarters. Sometimes they do quick little recaps and they say how they felt about the day or if something specific stood out to them in their dates, and they share it with their fellow castmates. So something in particular that I had to point out on the men's side that just made me laugh was Milton. Milton was so excited about his date with Lydia, and he had to tell the guys, he's like, man, I can't wait for us to get together. You know, she's a geologist. I love rocks. We're going to go hiking. And when we go hiking, we can collect samples of rocks, and then we can take it back to my place because I have a microscope and we can observe them. It's going to be great. It's awesome. She's the one. And I'm like, Milton, okay. Like, he's so nice. He's a good guy, and he's 24, so you don't want to say anything bad about him. But dude, nobody wants to go on a hike and look for rocks. She's a geologist during the day. Like, that is her job. That's your hobby. But nevertheless, yeah, Milton was geeked about it, literally. Then in the women's living quarters, something that stood out to me is that the majority of those women agreed that Milton was the most awkward date. So I don't know if we'll see him on dates with a lot of other women, but it seems like Lydia is still an option for him. So moving right along, day two. Day two, we meet JP, the firefighter. He is 30 years old, and we meet Taylor, the teacher. She is 25 years old. There's a 5-year age difference, but it's the other way around. So Milton and Lydia were 24 and 30. The male was younger. Now, in this case, we have JP and Taylor. There's a 5-year difference, but the woman is younger. Somehow that just has always seemed more acceptable. It's no different from when you're like in school or you're in high school and it's like, oh, I'm dating an older guy. That was acceptable for a girl to date an older guy. But when a girl was dating a younger guy, if you're in 8th grade and it's like, what? You're dating a 6th grader? What is wrong with you? Yeah, the double standard never changed, even in 20s and 30s. So I guess it stops mattering once you get to your 30s and 40s. Anywho, this couple, they are very bland, very plain Jane. I call them the all-American couple, and that is because JP literally loves red, white, and blue. He loves his flag. It makes sense that he is a firefighter. Whatever he can do for his country, he wants to be an American hero. He doesn't have much conversation, but he just seems like a good, wholesome Texas homegrown guy. Yes, this season is taking place in Houston, Texas. So all of them are from the same city and somehow maybe have not dated each other before. We shall see. But he is into Taylor because Taylor is not too much. She seems like she comes from a small hometown as well, too. She's a kindergarten teacher. She actually teaches at the school that he used to attend when he was in kindergarten. So it seems like he's really big on, home values and having a good old Southern girl, and they are clicking. They seem to hit it off very quickly. And at this point, he's like, I'm ready to propose now. Like, why do we have to wait? Okay, I'll wait, whatever. There's not much to say about that couple. Now, for her in particular, something she said when she came on the screen in her confessional, she did say that she believes that she's ready for marriage now as opposed to in the past. And that is because she said she didn't love herself previously, but now she does. They said that to us for a reason. And so that leads me to believe at some point in these future episodes, there has to be more to come out about her story as to why maybe she didn't love herself or how it shaped her into the person she is today. I don't know. Let's put a pin in it. We'll see. So they're going great. They have come up with nicknames for each other. His nickname is Sugar Butt and her nickname is Sugar. So they're a cutesy little love thing. Moving right along. Now we have Uche. Ooh, child. Y'all, I cannot say his name without saying, ooh, child, because Uche, he is a lot. Now, he had more than one date on this first episode. He had a date with another girl named Miriam, but it was a very awkward date, and she could not answer any of the questions clearly. You don't know what her job was. She didn't know where she lived. She said she worked in the Middle East, but she's moving back here. Then he says, when are you moving back here? And she says, oh, well, I already moved back here. It was just very confusing. And I don't want to confuse y'all any further. So there's no need to pull up her picture and talk about her any further. But he didn't even upset me in that date. Uche is an African male. And he is a little dominating, a little condescending. His tone, the way he talks to you, it literally feels like he's talking down to you, which makes it worse because they can't see each other. So although he has a smile on his face some of the time when he's talking, there is just something about him that rubs me the wrong way. And I will get to that later on in the episode. But when he first meets Aaliyah, so Uche, he is 33. He is a lawyer. Aaliyah is 28 and she is an ICU nurse. They seem to hit it off well. you think to yourself, maybe this might be our new Black love couple of the season. This might be a real love story. They have a lot of common interests. She tells him that she grew up in Japan as a kid, so she loves like anime and poetry and like more weird things. She told him her reason why she became an ICU nurse. He actually is a lawyer, but he owns a software company. I don't know how the two go together, but basically he's well off. He's doing good for himself. We will dig deeper into their story as it goes on, and trust me, it's a lot. So now we move out of day 2, and we are at day 3, and we are in the men's and women's living quarters. Now, typically, if they talk about a certain topic in the living quarters amongst each other, the women are speaking amongst each other, you know that topic is what they're going to talk about in their dates. So they should have named this episode "Let's Talk About Sex, Baby," because all their conversation was about intimacy, and then we go into the dates, and that's exactly what it was about as well. But in the women's living quarters, they were kind of having a conversation talking about, hey, do you want to know about your guy's past history with people? Do you want to know how many people he's been with? As if people would even tell the truth, but whatever. And a lot of women were like, I really don't care as long as he has a clean bill of health, and it's all about me at this point. I'm the only person that's important, so I don't care to know about his past history. There may be some importance in knowing about the past history, but anyways, we'll get to that later on down in the episode. But going into the dates, we already know what we're talking about. We have Izzy and Stacy, and since the topic for day 3 is intimacy, Stacy has no problem with that. She's very raunchy. She's confident. She said, hey, Izzy, I'm a good time. I like to go out to bars, play darts, play games. And if you were there with me, I might walk past you, like squeeze your butt a little bit, just, because it's fun. And he's like, okay, I like it. You can tell that she intrigues him. He can keep up with her. She's a good time. She will keep him on his toes. Now, they haven't connected emotionally at this point, but their dates are interesting enough to keep his attention. So he does like that. Then we move over to Izzy and Johnny. And of course, they've been having deep conversation. They're able to talk about intimacy. What they specifically spoke about with intimacy, he asked her, like, do you like the lights off or do you like the lights on? Oddly enough, she said that she likes the lights on, which if you have that conversation just with your friends or your whoever's close to you or coworkers or your significant other, most people would probably say lights off. Now, Johnie did tell him, she's like, look, if it's the middle of the night, I'm not going to be like, hey, stop, pause, go turn the lights on. That would be weird. Yeah, I thought that was a fun, interesting little conversation that they had, so I had to point it out. Then next we have Chris and Johnie, and you can see that Netflix has given them these little intimacy card games to play with to be able to open them up to ask those types of questions. So one of the cards that they pulled asked, when did you lose your virginity and why? Well, sorry, when did you lose your virginity and would you change the experience and why? I thought that was very deep and thought-provoking. Chris actually took out this opportunity to really open up to Johnie, and he said that he's never said this to anybody else because when people asked him how he lost his virginity, he just kind of like lies about it and makes something up and makes it seem like it was a good experience. But in all actuality, he was 17 years old and he went to Mexico with a group of his friends, and I assume they were drinking because they were in Mexico, but of course they wouldn't be drinking age, so I'm sure that's why he didn't say it. But he was in Mexico, and then he basically felt peer pressured into it. He didn't want to do it, but his friend, she got on top of him, and she just made him do it. And I understand where he's coming from, and this is probably a story that a lot of males can relate to because it's like if he didn't do it, then it looks like, okay, what's wrong with you? Or do you not want her? Or are you scared? Or are you, at that point, they're trying to like figure it out. Like, okay, is this how I define my manhood? Does that make me less of a man if I don't do it? Is she going to go and talk about me to people? I'm sure there was a lot of stress and pressure. So at the end of the day, he still did it, but he didn't feel good about it. He felt like he was taken advantage of, basically. And so I thought it was perfect that Johnie responded and told him, I'm sorry that happened to you. That should not have happened to you. And don't take that lightly. Your feelings are valid. That should never have happened to you. So I thought that was perfect, especially for him to be open and comfortable enough with her to share that with her, but then also share that on a national, worldwide streaming platform like Netflix, because I'm sure that a lot of males can relate to it. They're just not saying that out loud. But if the shoe was on the other foot and it was a 17-year-old girl who felt like she was forced into her first time and she didn't really want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it anyway, then people automatically understand because it's a woman. But when it's a man, there should not be a double standard. It's the same thing. You're 17 years old. You have not really even lived life yet. You're still figuring yourself out and growing and developing. And for that to have to be his first time experience, I really felt for him. It made me like him even more. He's such a good guy. Y'all, I'm rooting for Chris. I'm team Chris all day long. Between Chris and Izzy for Johnny, I choose Chris. But let's see what she chooses. So at the end of their day, he lets her know like he really cares for her tremendously. He looks forward to talking to her. Even the fact that he feels comfortable opening up to her, he really feels like they're connecting and vibing, and he feels good about them. So moving right along into Izzy and Lydia, he says a lot of times at the beginning of his confessional, he admits like, look, I'm a people pleaser. I know that's what I do. I'm working on that, but I am. And that he said that for a reason, because going into this date, him and Lydia are not on the same page, but he's going to tell her what she needs to hear because he's a people pleaser. So Lydia, as I said, is a Puerto Rican firecracker. She is just always on 20, and that is on a scale of 1 to 10. And so she's so excited about this date, and she feels like they have so much in common, and she overtalks him all the time. He says 2 words and then she starts talking again. So she really doesn't know how he feels, but she's saying like, I feel like we have so much in common, and you're my number one, and you're this, and that. Don't you feel like we have a lot in common? And he's hesitant, and he just sits there and he's like, yeah. But she's not even listening to the tone of his voice. So I think if she would just slow down and shut up and actually listen and have meaningful conversation and stop getting ahead of herself, then she would allow him an opportunity to actually open up and talk more and really get into the date. It's as if she's on the date by herself and they could actually progress. But since it's all about Lydia and she's so hyped up on the idea of them, she's not catching on to the fact that he's kind of falling off. But you know what? He ended their date quickly. He's like, all right, let's just call it, a date. I think this was good because he's being a people pleaser. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to think about you in my dreams, smiling and cheesing. And he's already walked out of the room. So we'll see where this date goes. Moving right along into Uche. Him and Aaliyah are on their date. And as you know, they were vibing before. But they get a little bit more into topical conversation about their common interests. So a good thing about them is that they're both into poetry. They're both into writing and music. Actually, they both used to play the guitar and they need to get back into it. And they're just so excited as to what their relationship would look like outside of this, because they would actually start performing together again. She thinks that Uche would be great in helping to push her along into some of those goals that she even has for herself, and she could learn from him. And Uche is loving that because Uche is low-key, really high-key a narcissist, but we'll start to see that later on in this episode. So moving on to the good old boring all-American couple, JP and Taylor. They I don't know. They had just another little cute scene, but there was really nothing to it. They talk about their family background and history, which is important. They both had divorced parents, and so that's not something they want to do at all. And maybe that's why they're so committed to each other in these dates, and you don't really see them date other people. I don't know if production did that or if that's just them, but everything still seems to be going great, and you can tell that they're each other's number one. So that is how day 3 ends. All right, so day 4. Day 4 starts off in the women's living quarters, and we have Stacy and Lydia having a conversation. Now, remember, we know that they're dating the same person. Izzy, I believe Lydia knows as well too, because she's purposely talking to Stacy about how good their connection is and how they're really feeling one another, and she believes that he's the one. And she's also kind of trying to intimidate Stacy and just scare her off. Where Stacy is, she is recognizing this, but she's not saying anything because she also knows this is an experiment. This is somewhat of a game, and you're not going to get me to show my cards at this point. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket, and I will move accordingly. You're not getting any type of feedback from me. So that leads us into the date with Izzy and Lydia. Yeah, Lydia is turned up once again. She's so excited for this date with Izzy. She walks in and she thinks their connection is solid. It's strong. And she immediately says, "Hola, mi amor. I miss you." And she's not hearing anything. We see him on the other side of the room, but he's not saying anything. And so she's like, "Hello?" And so he says, I'm here, in a very calm voice like that. Also telling her, "Girl, chill, calm down." And so she says, "What's up?" Still excited. So then Izzy, he has to break the news to her the hard way. Izzy says, "This is difficult. You're a really amazing girl." Pause. Izzy is basically giving her like the denial email that you get once you apply for a job and you realize that they chose somebody else, or maybe you applied for a certain school or college or whatever, or you applied for something just for your credit and you get a letter like, "Unfortunately." Yes, that's exactly what Izzy did. He said, "You know what? I have stronger connections with other people, and so unfortunately this isn't going to work. I'm sorry." And Lydia is also confused. Her heart is broken. She's like, "What is this? Like, I didn't expect this. Where's this coming from? And can you tell me? Because it has to be something." And Izzy is confused because remember, he's a people pleaser. So Izzy doesn't know what to say. He tells her, "Honestly, there's nothing wrong with you. I just have stronger connections with other people. I think you're a great girl." And so you can see that she's just crying and crying and crying. He eventually walks out of the date. Like, he tries to do it nicely, but she's in her confessional and she's crying. She's basically saying that she just craves to be loved. Why won't anybody love her for her? She feels like she's never picked, basically. She wants to get chosen. Ain't nobody choosing her. She goes to the women's living quarters, and she cries, and her friend Aaliyah comes to console her and tells her, "You know what? It's okay. You're still worthy of love. You deserve to be loved. Maybe there's a different connection here." Mind you, Lydia still has Milton as an option. So we'll see if she's going to double back to Milton. Now, we have Uche, and Aaliyah. Everything has been going great for them at this point, right? Y'all probably wondering, why do I say Uche? This is the moment. This episode is called "So You're a Recent Cheater." This was inspired by him, but let me get into it. So they say things are going great. So let's challenge this relationship. Everything seems to be roses and sunflowers. So obviously there has to be a hard conversation that we need to have to test this out. So they start talking about deal breakers. And Aaliyah asks Uche, "What's your deal breaker?" He says his deal breaker is dishonesty. She agrees. They both do not like when people lie. She had even admitted she's human. She's lied in relationships before, but that's something that she's grown from, and she does not respect that in relationships at all. And so she doesn't want that out of a partner moving forward either. And so Uche takes it a step further and he asks her, okay, have you ever cheated on a former partner that you were with? Aaliyah is hesitant to answer, but she said, I want to be truthful with you because I'm not a perfect person and I have made that mistake one time. So that sends up red flags for Uche. Uche says, okay, open up. You can tell me about it. I'm listening. And you can tell that Aaliyah feels ashamed. She's hesitant to say anything, but she wants to be open with him to move forward in their relationship. So she said it was an instance of she wasn't sexually satisfied in her relationship, and she kept trying to tell her significant other, and he just wouldn't do anything different. She kept trying to come up with solutions and ideas, and she feels like she tried everything to the point where she had a weak moment and it happened and she felt horrible and she learned from it. She will never do that again. So Uche said, okay, and when did this happen? When was this? She said 2 years ago. He said, oh, so you're a recent cheater. Yeah, I'm not joking. This is not my voice. He said it just like that. Oh, so you're a recent cheater. She was caught off guard, just like me, because he said it in a very condescending, judgmental tone. And she says, Uche, don't be like that. He's like, no, you are. She said, it was 2 years ago. He said, let me ask you this. Did you tell him? Did you ever tell him? She said, well, no. He said, wow. And I'm thinking, girl, you know that this is on Netflix, right? So he didn't know before, but he knows now. He's probably watching with his friends and family members because, hey, I heard Aaliyah was on this show. Let's see how she do dating these other people, because you know how we was together. He might even still have love for you. He might be like, look, I'm rooting for her. I want something good to come out of this for her. She's a good girl. Let's watch her story. And then they're watching and they're like, 2 years ago, oh, he couldn't satisfy her. The guy was probably like, bro, she ain't talking about me. Like we had broke up secretly. She talked about somebody else. Like, that ain't me. And his friends is like, whatever you say, bro. Anywho, moving right along, she says that she did not tell him. Of course, he knows now. And then, so Uche asked her, so how long did you stay with him after that? She said 3 months. He said, wow. You just go like make her feel horrible. And he was like, so you stayed with him 3 more months? Why did you do that? Like, why did you even cheat on him? You could have just broken up with him. She said, I know, but to be honest, there's a part of me that didn't want to be by myself. And there's good parts about him that I didn't want to miss out on, but I felt bad. And we ended up breaking up 3 months later. And I didn't want to tell him because he's a good guy and I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I felt like I had already done enough damage. So Uche then goes into lawyer mode and just attacks her. He's like, no, that wasn't about you. That wasn't about him at all. It was about you. You were trying to protect yourself. You didn't tell him because you didn't want to face the embarrassment and shame of what you had done. You should have never done that to him. And then you stayed with him. Did you continue sleeping with the guy? And she says, no, it was just one time. He's like, wow. That's a lot. Like, he is judging her hardcore. He said, this is crazy because I've cheated before, but I was 18 and I kissed somebody. You slept with the guy. And he stuck the knife in, then he stuck it a little bit further, and then he started to turn it slowly, both ways. It was horrible. She was bawling, crying. She felt horrible. And she says, Uche, please don't be like that. I'm not going to cheat on you if that's what you're thinking. He said, how do I know that? How do I know? Pause. First of all, Uche does not even know this guy. This was her past. She did not have to tell you anything. You did not have to judge her like that. Everything was going great. Now something that she's truthful with and tells you about it 2 years prior, you make her feel like the scum of the earth, lower than low. Does that totally change your perception of her? As if you've always been perfect? Yes, when you were 18, you kissed someone, but you were still unfaithful. You were still disloyal to the person that you were with. So what is the difference? I'm just saying, like, you had character flaws and moments where you aren't too proud of it. She was very honest with you about hers, trying to move forward. Did you know her ex-boyfriend? Was that your brother, your cousin, your coworker, your best friend? Who was it? Because why are you so invested, and why are you coming down on her like thunder in the night? It was crazy. I was so upset watching it, y'all, because I felt like it was like stomping on her head, and you made her feel like she could open up to you. And now all of a sudden it's as if she's a different person in your eyes and she disgusts you. She literally left out of the date crying and back into the women's living quarters. And Lydia was there to console her, just like Aaliyah had consoled Lydia when Izzy broke up with her. So it was very interesting because when Lydia was consoling Aaliyah, she says to her, I just feel like me and you have so much in common. You remind me of myself. We're just alike. I feel so sorry for you. It's going to be okay. And that was interesting because I was thinking this moment is not about her. So why is she relating it to herself? Put a pin in that. Anywho, Aaliyah says she doesn't want to be judged for her past actions, and she is just an emotional mess at this point. And then the episode ends. Bam. Episode 2. The title of episode 2 was called Can I Talk to You for Real? Basically, this whole episode, they got deep and they got into real conversations. So we start off with Milton and Lydia. Of course, Milton is Lydia's second choice because she wasn't that into him because he's 24 and she's 30. But now he's pretty much her only option. But she cannot hide her feelings and emotions. She goes into their date, and this Puerto Rican firecracker that's normally on 20, she's on 2. And Milton is caught off guard. Milton says, are you okay? And she is very honest with him. She says that she's hurt because of what happened with Izzy, and he let her go, and it was just a lot, and she didn't understand it. Milton says, I think you're a great person. And at this point, she was honest with him. Like, you don't have real conversations with me. I feel like you haven't been vulnerable with me. You don't open up to me. And he said that's not something he's used to, but he's willing to do it because he really likes her and he trusts her. So at that point, she opens up to him and she lets him know, like, she craves so hard to be loved. She wants to be seen and valued for who she is. And he tells her, I see you. I think that you're a great person. I look forward to our dates. I look forward to hearing your voice, which is very annoying, but whatever. He says, I think you'll be a great mother. I love the fact that you're in tune with your emotions. And is she? Or is she just really emotional? But whatever. We'll get into that. But he says, I love all these things about you. And look, I'm willing to open up with you. So he tells her, as a kid, he was very unhappy. He lived in Japan. He thought that he was horrible because he got really bad grades as a kid. And school was very hard there. Then he moves to the US right before high school, and he gets here in high school, and all of a sudden he's like the smartest kid in the class, and he starts making all of these good grades. He literally had his associate's degree by the time that he graduated from high school. He went into college as a junior. 18 years old as a junior. That's crazy. First of all, that shows you the difference between the education system in Japan and the US. But for that reason, he's been around a lot of older people. So although he's 24, it shows that he's probably grown up a lot faster and he's much more mature than what we think. He's a nerd, but he literally went to school in Japan and he had to try to keep up, and he wasn't good enough there. He was getting bad grades, but here he's a freaking genius. So he was just saying he puts on like he's confident and, things don't bother him, but really like he's he's unsure of himself and he just kind of like puts on a front. And so that's something that he's working on. And that's why he admires her for the way that she is. He tries to act like he's bold and confident, but he hides behind jokes and things like that. And Milton is actually a really good guy, and we see his personality start to come out more and more as the episodes go. But Lydia appreciated the fact that he opened up to her, and you can tell they're actually starting to connect. She tells him, your age doesn't even matter to me at this point. Like, I'm glad we had this conversation and I'm really feeling you. Now, I don't know if she's saying this because at this point he is her only option, or because she's really seeing him for who he is and seeing that, yes, you are 24, but now knowing your history, you probably are 24 in age, but in your mind, you are older in maturity because you've had to be, because you've been around older people. You've advanced far beyond the people your age. So we'll put a pin in that and see how this goes with them. So then we have good old boring JP and Taylor. They got deep into their conversation by him basically saying like his mom was evil when he was a kid and she yelled at his sisters all the time and destroyed their rooms. And he was the youngest. And so there's nothing he could do while she was there. But when she left, he could go and comfort and console his sisters. So that basically shows his family values. He says his mom's sweet now. She's a peach. Good old all-American family, right? We'll put a pin in that. They get away from that couple quickly because they're pretty much boring. Moving right along, Uche, and Aaliyah. We wanted the episode to start off with them, but it didn't. They made us wait. He apologizes to her and completely comes in with a different attitude and was like, you know what? That was more about me because of my past relationships, and I've had instances where I couldn't trust people, so I shouldn't have projected on you like that, and I apologize. I got to do better. And at that, it really didn't have much to do with you. You didn't have to tell me that truth about yourself, and I appreciate the fact that you did. And I'm like, Uche, that's interesting. You come in with a totally different story. And she was agreeing with him. Like, I don't want you to judge me and I don't want to feel nervous to open up with you about anything else. And he's like, you don't have to be. That was my dad, my fault. We're leaving here together. You are my person. I really like you. And freaking Aaliyah was like, yep, we're on the same page. We're leaving together. I'm glad we got past this. And I'm thinking, girl, he had you in tears, like crying, like bawling, crying. He broke you down verbally, like just with words. Do you not think that he's capable of doing this again? One minor disagreement and he tore you down like that, your character, and you're going to stay with him? I didn't really like that, but that is just me. Moving right along, we have Izzy and Stacy. They're still flirtatious with each other, even suggestive in the little things that they say. But he tells her, like, you're not that vulnerable with me. I'm going to let you know I do have another connection here, but she actually connects with me on an emotional level, and you don't really, like, open up to that point. I don't really know how you're fully feeling about me. And Stacy is very honest with him. You're right. I think life is easier that way. I like to have fun. This is easy. I like how we're vibing. And some emotions and feelings are growing, and when it naturally comes along for me to open up to you more, I'll let you know how I feel. She was very direct and straightforward in her response, and I guess all you can do is respect the truth. So moving right along into Chris and Johnie, they have always gotten along really well. He is just like a kid in a candy store when he's talking to her. He's always all smiles. And he specifically tells her he absolutely loves her laugh. He could pick it out anywhere. He looks forward to hearing her laugh in the future around his family. He can already picture her at family reunions. I mean, everything is just planning out and mapping out well for the two of them. And you can tell that she's enjoying that as well too. But at the end of the day, she's a little hesitant because he's still not Izzy. So then we get to her and Izzy, as in Johnny and Izzy, and she feels like she has a little crush on him, like she's like a fifth grader. So it gives her all the butterflies and feels that she needs. So she looks forward to their dates. He did open up with her on this date because he lets her know that he grew up Jehovah's Witness. And he absolutely freaking hated it. He could not participate in any activities at school for any holidays or anything, which I believe is just absolute torture. Like, oh my gosh, let them be kids. If it's Halloween and you don't want them dressed up as like a demon or a devil or a monster, I get it. Like dress up as, I don't know, the president, like a milkman, a mailman, I don't know, a football player. That's not going to hurt anything. Get some free candy at school. Why are you torturing the kid? Because they're literally going to grow up to hate their religion. Let them be kids. But whatever, that is exactly what happened with Izzy. And Izzy said in 2018, he put up his Christmas tree and that mug did not come down until April. And so I totally get it. He says he's looking forward to time in the future, celebrating every single holiday with Johnny and her family, and he is here for it. So that's how they got deeper into their conversation in this episode. Then we have JP and Taylor. Let's make this quick because they're boring. It's proposal time. He literally goes into the pot. He's dressed up red, white, and blue, of course, but it's a suit and she has on a white dress. They can't see each other, but somehow they just knew to dress up. Okay, producers. But anyways, he gets on one knee. He is proposing through the wall and he is crying the entire time and saying all these sweet things about her. Obviously, she said yes and moving right along. We'll see how they feel when they see each other. Now, to end off that day, we have Chris and Johnny, which she admits to him, I think my connection with Izzy is stronger, and so I don't want to waste your time anymore. You're a great guy, but I think I'm going to have to end it with us here. And honestly, Chris took this really well. He's like, you know what? Don't even trip. I get it. I appreciate at least the time we've gotten to get to know each other, this time we've spent with each other. And thank you for not stringing me along. And I'm glad to have gotten to know you. And it is what it is. And I wish you the best. That was really mature. He's 27. He's younger than her, but so much more mature than her. Yeah, I was rooting for Chris, but we'll see how this all unwinds. But that is how the day ended. Now, going into the next day, we have Izzy and Johnny. So she's excited. She lets him know in their date, I ended things with my number two, which who wants to be referred to as number two? But anyways, she ended things with her number two. She said, well, he says that he heard about it. And then she was shocked that Chris was actually emotional. She's thinking, oh my gosh, he really cares about me. Duh. Anyways, they both say that they're nervous about seeing each other or just seeing the other people one day, but I don't think they have anything to worry about. They're both really attractive people. Then she gets a little deeper with him and lets him know, hey, I want to be honest with you. Of my past relationships, I'm used to dating people with addiction issues. And I, of course, was formerly married. And me being married, one day I got a phone call saying that my ex-boyfriend had actually died of an overdose. And it just really shook up my world and life just seemed real to me at that point. I never thought about my mortality until then. And I immediately had to end things with my husband because I realized I've never loved him. The only man that I've ever loved was my ex-boyfriend that is now deceased. And that was a lot for me to deal with. And yes, it was probably a toxic relationship when I was with him, but I really loved him. And now the fact that he's not here, that did something to me. So I had to do a lot of work on myself. And now I'm here. And now I'm starting to feel the same way I felt about him 7 years ago, my ex-boyfriend that's now deceased. I'm starting to feel that way about you. And I'm listening like, whoa, that was heavy. Like, I don't know if you should have shared that story. Izzy is very quiet And Johnie even says, hey, I'm nervous. You're not saying anything. Talk to me. Izzy said, that's a lot. I don't know. It's just a lot to process. She said, yes, but I wanted to be open and honest with you. And so you could know the depth of my feelings. He says, I got to process this. I think we should call it a night because honestly, you should have told me this a long time ago. You're telling me that your husband couldn't even fill the shoes of your one and only true love. And now you're wanting me to? I've already been abandoned by my ex-fiance that walked away from me. I don't know. I got to think about this. Yeah, what do y'all think? Because I just don't think that she could have shared that story with anybody on this show, on this blind speed dating show, and they would have been comfortable putting their heart on the line and proposing to her. She probably should have just held that one in her heart. Okay. But anywho, y'all, she is cut up about it and she don't know what to do with herself. So let's move into the boring couple, JP and Taylor. Of course, he's already proposed to her. And now this is the first reveal that we are preparing for. He is on one side of the doors and she is on the other side. The doors have not opened yet, but we see that he's saying that he's very nervous. He's not going to know what to say. He doesn't know what she looks like at all. He doesn't even have an idea, but he's excited. She is saying that she had a dream the night before. She doesn't know what he looks like, but she had a dream that he has blonde hair and really, really white teeth. As we know, that is not what JP looks like, but she is excited and dun dun dun. The doors open and the episode comes to an end. Yeah, that was my review for Love is Blind Season 5, Episode 1 through 2. I will be back with the next video for Episodes 3 through 4, and we will get moving right along. I got to push these out before the new episodes come out on this Friday, as they do every Friday. So please, y'all, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and come back for episode review 3 through 4. Holla.